The beginning of a battle in silence, this is not just a story about a school, it's about systems wrapped in tradition, power cloaked in polish, and the courage of one girl who dared to walk through it all alone. When Amara Johnson received her acceptance letter to Ridgecrest Academy, it wasn't just a personal victory, it was a historic one. For the first time in nearly a century, this prestigious private school had admitted a black student. There was no press release, no photos, no announcement, just quiet footsteps on polished marble. But what Ridgecrest didn't expect was that this quiet girl wouldn't stay quiet for long. What began as silent exclusion would unravel into scandal, and what started as one girl's survival would ignite a revolution inside the very heart of the institution. And it all started the day she passed through Ridgecrest's gates, alone but unshaken. The first and the only the morning sun glinted off the iron gates of Ridgecrest Academy, casting long shadows on the pristine stone path that led to the oldest and most elite school in the state. When Amara Johnson stepped through those gates, her heart beat like a drum in her chest, not from fear, but from the awareness that she was walking into history. She was the first black student ever admitted in Ridgecrest's 98-year legacy. The corridors she now entered had only ever echoed with the footsteps of privilege. Her acceptance came through merit and a full scholarship, but her presence was quietly controversial. No banners, no welcomes, just whispered questions and lingering stares. Every uniformed student that passed her stared a beat too long. Teachers greeted her with performative smiles. She wasn't just new, she was different, a living disruption in a long-standing tradition. But Amara didn't flinch. She carried her backpack and her pride like armor. She was here to rise, a school draped in silence from her first week. Amara could feel it in the air, an invisible wall that separated her from the others. Ridgecrest was polished on the outside, but cold beneath the surface. Students talked over her, not to her. Lunch tables filled quickly with laughing groups, but always left one seat empty, hers. Even teachers seemed unsure how to treat her. Some overcompensated with syrupy praise, others ignored her presence altogether. Her hand in class was often overlooked. She started noticing the smirks, the whispers, the lingering glances that said, "You don't belong here." There were no outright slurs, no visible attacks, just the heavy, exhausting weight of exclusions. Mole cruelties wrapped in perfect manners, and each day the silence grew louder, but Amara wasn't raised to be silent. She noticed, she remembered, and somewhere deep inside a fire began to burn. Something told her this school was hiding something, and soon she would expose it. The note in the locker, it was a Wednesday afternoon when Amara returned from chemistry lab and noticed something odd. Her locker, which she'd closed tightly that morning, was slightly ajar. She opened it cautiously, and there it was, folded, creased, and slipped between her books, a note unmarked with no name. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. Just 10 chilling words, scratched in uneven ink. Go back to where you belong, before something happens. The air around her thickened, her pulse roared in her ears. She scanned the hallway. No one looked back. No one seemed guilty, but she felt eyes watching. Amara stared at the note again. It wasn't just a threat. It was a warning, not shouted, not screamed, whispered, calculated, the kind of threat meant to break someone slowly. She folded it carefully and tucked it into her sleeve. She could have run home. She could have told no one, but instead she walked forward, back into class, back into the halls, holding her fear like a secret weapon. The principal's polished dismissal the following morning. Amara sat across from Principal Merrick in his office, a room of oak panels, leather chairs, and certificates of prestige. He listened as she recounted the note, nodding slowly, folding his hands like a man already preparing a polite dismissal. When she finished, he offered her a tight, rehearsed smile. "Teenagers can be dramatic, Miss Johnson. Sometimes a little tension helps build resilience." His words were dipped in charm, but cold underneath. There was no investigation, no urgency, just careful indifference. Amara sat still, her spine straight. She saw the truth in his eyes, not concern, but calculation. He wasn't shocked by the note. He was expecting this, maybe even condoning it. Outside his office, Ridgecrest looked unchanged. Inside her, something shifted. This wasn't just about a note anymore. It was about a system, a polished institution that protected its image more fiercely than its students. And in that moment, Amara knew the battle was just beginning. The call in the dark that night, long after the house had gone quiet and Amara had drifted into a fragile sleep, her mother's phone rang. 2:14 a.m., unknown number, Nia Johnson, tired but alert, picked up. What followed wasn't a conversation. It was a message laced with menace. You should pull your daughter out of Ridgecrest before something happens that can't be undone. The voice was low, male, and deliberate. Then silence, no click, just dead air. Nia sat up straight, her chest pounding. She stared at her phone screen, rage and fear fighting for dominance in her heart. Whoever called had her number. They'd made it personal now. She tiptoed into Amara's room. Her daughter was curled beneath a worn quilt, her brow still creased even in sleep. Nia sat beside her and whispered a silent promise. You are not alone in this. We fight together. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was how deep the threat truly ran, and how far Ridgecrest's protectors would go to keep their image untarnished. A silent recorder, a loud truth Amara knew fear. But this time she answered it with strategy. She didn't tell the principal again. She didn't write a complaint. She got smart. One Friday, she walked into Ridgecrest carrying more than books. Hidden deep in her pencil case was a small, voice-activated recorder, one her cousin Malik had mailed her with a simple message, place it where they least expect it. During lunch, while most students were outside, Amara slipped into the staff hallway. The lounge door was cracked open, laughter and coffee steam filled the air. She slid the recorder beneath the couch cushions and walked away without a sound. For days she waited. Then, one evening, Malik sent her a message. I've got it. You're not paranoid. You're surrounded. He attached a file inside, a recording of faculty, teachers, and administrators mocking her, laughing, calling her a diversity quota. And worst of all, Principal Merrick's calm, smug voice. She'll quit by Thanksgiving. She's not Ridgecrest material. Amara stared at the screen, silent, then whispered, Good, now I have proof. The digital strike, the decision wasn't impulsive. It was calculated. Amara and Malik, her older cousin and trusted confidant, spent the next week stitching the digital evidence into something that couldn't be ignored. Malik, a self-taught coder and quiet tech prodigy, turned the audio clips into a timed, encrypted video presentation. They didn't just want to expose the truth. They wanted the world to see what Ridgecrest hid behind its manicured lawns and gold-framed diplomas. When Malik asked one night, staring into the camera during a video call, Founders Assembly, Amara replied without hesitation, The day they celebrate their legacy is the day we burn it down. Malik nodded. The plan was set. The file would auto-play on the school's main auditorium projector. No downloads, no clicks. Just press next slide, and the truth would roar through the speakers like a siren. Amara didn't know what would happen afterward. But she was done surviving in silence. It was time to make Ridgecrest listen. The day the silence shattered, the Founders' Assembly was Ridgecrest's crown jewel. Students lined the aisles in polished uniforms, and parents filled the seats in designer silence. A string quartet played as the lights dimmed. Then Principal Merrick took the stage, confident, composed, camera ready. Amara sat 3 rows from the front, eyes locked on the giant screen behind him. She clutched her seat, heart drumming against her ribs. At Ridgecrest, Merrick declared, We honor tradition, excellence, and integrity. Values that guide every decision we make. Click. The next slide should have been a vintage photo of the founders. Instead, the screen fizzled, then flickered into something very different. Text messages, group chats, screenshots, laughing emojis, slurs, mockery, Amara's face edited onto memes. Students gasped, then audio. Teachers' voices, staff giggling, and finally Merrick's voice, calm and unmistakable. She doesn't belong here. Let's make her uncomfortable enough to quit. The silence was absolute, then chaos. Parents stood. Phones came out. Whispers exploded into outrage, and on stage, Principal Merrick turned pale. His empire crumbling in real time, the fall of the gatekeeper, Principal Merrick didn't move at first. The room had erupted, gasps, murmurs, shouts, but he stood stiff, like a statue realizing it could bleed. His rehearsed composure was gone, swallowed by the raw sound of truth echoing through the auditorium. Board members rose from their front row seats, visibly shaken. Parents stormed toward the stage, demanding answers. Students stared in disbelief. Some recorded, others wept. A few clapped. Merrick tried to speak. There must be. This is clearly manipulated, but no one listened. The evidence was too detailed, too damning. The damage irreversible. By nightfall, his resignation was announced. The board, under public pressure, called an emergency session. A formal investigation launched. Emails leaked. Internal memos surfaced. Ridgecrest's clean marble facade cracked, and at the center of it all stood Amara, not as a victim, but as the catalyst, the truth teller, the spark they never saw coming. Her name in stone, the weeks that followed reshaped Ridgecrest's legacy forever. Amara returned to school not as a shadow, but as a stormbreaker. Some students apologized, others joined her in demanding reform. The silence that once suffocated her had been broken, and in its place a movement began. The board implemented sweeping changes, new leadership, a diversity council, mandatory anti-bias training. Most shocking of all, a scholarship in Amara's name created to open doors for students who, like her, had always been shut out. She stood before her class on graduation day, tassels swaying in the breeze, as the entire auditorium rose in a standing ovation, not out of pity, but out of respect. And as she walked across the stage, a new plaque was unveiled in the main hall, Amara Johnson Hall for Courage in the Face of Silence. She had walked into Ridgecrest as an outsider. She left it as a legend. From outlier to legacy, Amara came to Ridgecrest as a lone figure. Different, watched, unwelcome, but she left it as a storm that changed everything. What was meant to break her only exposed what was already broken. What was meant to silence her only gave her a louder voice, and in a place built on exclusion, she carved out inclusion, brick by brick, truth by truth. The girl who once ate alone at the back of the cafeteria now had her name engraved in Ridgecrest's halls, not as a token, but as a titan. Because sometimes it doesn't take an army to change history, it only takes one brave soul, willing to walk through a gate no one else dared to.